Welcome back everybody to our intermediate and advanced Civil 3D training series. We're going to continue on the videos here with more assembly creation for our residential subdivision. By the time all is said and done, we're going to have probably 6, 8, 10 assemblies. We might not need them all, but it's better to kind of have them ahead of time in case we do need them so we don't have to go back and forth. So in the previous video, we took a look at our primary collector assembly, and we've defined the entire assembly. However, on our site, we are going to have a couple of intersections. So our regular primary collector assembly will be used here. We'll need a special one for our intersection, then our regular primary collector, then our special one back to our regular primary collector. So when we're going through the intersection, we don't want the median included with our assembly. So to make this easier, and instead of redoing our assemblies and renaming everything and drawing everything from scratch, by all means, if that's what you want to do, go for it. I am going to copy my current assembly. Now I'm not going to window the entire thing. I'm not going to copy the entire thing. When we're working with assemblies in Civil 3D, we have to be very careful what we select on and what we click on. So I'm going to select just the green center marker, and I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to copy it directly below, which is going to duplicate my entire assembly. I'm then going to immediately rename the assembly marker to primary collector, no median, and again, I'll append it with new because I have a number of other assemblies in my drawing here. Now, if we remember back to the design guidelines, the entire width of pavement from inside to outside is 18.9 meters. So I need to ensure that my road is 18.9 meters when all is said and done. So I'm going to get out my calculator here quickly and do a little bit of math based on the detail here. So we have 18.9 divided by 2 gives us 9.45 per side, and I'm going to minus the 7.7, which means, and it's right here, we don't even need to do this, 1.75 meters. So I need to essentially delete those pieces in the middle and make this driving lane be 1.75 meters bigger. So that would leave us to 5.25, and the right side one would be 5.25. Now just double check. I'm going to measure left to right, and we see that's 18.9. Now, when we go to build the corridor, when we go through the intersection, we might need to modify this assembly. It might work better if we don't have any driving lanes. It all depends on how Civil 3D decides to target, but we're gonna check that when we get there, and we'll have to figure that one out as we build our corridor. So there's going to be a little bit of back and forth here. Now, this one generally happens before the intersection. So we have our regular assembly, then we have the no median one for a little bit, and then we have the one that's directly connected to the road to the north. So we now need to make 2 more additional assemblies for this. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to place it slightly here to the left. And what I'm going to do is delete that. So I'm deleting the right-hand side of the road, and I'm going to change the name of this one to primary collector. Let me go back into assembly properties. Primary collector, no median, curb, gutter on left, new. And I'm also going to copy this again. Try not to overlap other assemblies because then you'll have a hard time deleting things. And if you want to line them up, remember the trick of grabbing it with just the grip. So primary collector, no median, curb gutter on left. This will be primary collector, no median, curb and gutter on right, new. So again, we can name them through properties. We can rename them through the assembly properties as well if we want. So that's essentially the assemblies that we are going to need for the entire primary collector. We have the one with the median, which again still needs to be slightly modified, and we'll talk about that when we build the corridor. We have the one at the right before and right after we go through the intersection, and then we have the ones for the intersection themselves. So if our alignment was going backwards, and this assembly here on the left, we're not going to be using this one because we're for our project, we're not going to need it. We're not going to need to stretch any lanes. Essentially, we'll be taking through the intersection, we'll be taking this lane and we'll be stretching it to the edge of asphalt. We could throw these other driving lanes in there as well and then not do any stretching, but the more driving lanes we have when we're actually stretching assemblies, the more problems that could happen with the stretching. But again, we'll diagnose those when it comes into those parts. Now, as we see, these pieces are already named. The right lane, that's left lane, our left bike lane. Don't worry too much about the duplicate names. So these are all named left bike lane. When we go to set these up in our corridor, it'll only show us the names that are directly related to our assemblies themselves. So we're not going to have a massive list of duplicates. Another good thing, if you want, name these. Just throw some M text beside them and name them. All right, now that we have the primary collector assemblies done, let's go and create essentially the same, kind of the same for our residential street. So under corridors, I'm going to create assembly. I'm going to call it residential street new. It is an undivided crowned road, and I'll hit OK. And I'll place the marker. Now flipping back to the design guidelines and finding the, I think Residential Street's near the end. Finding our residential street cross section, the one we're going to use. So it's this one here. It's 16 meters wide, 8.5 meter travel lane, 3.75 meter offsets for our property lines, and a 1.5 meter sidewalk attached to the curb and gutter. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to go back into the tool palettes command. And I'm going to select lanes. And I'm going to start with lane super elevation AOR. Again, use the smart pieces that can stretch and extend and match up with other things. So lane super elevation AOR. My right hand side, my width is 4.25, 2% slope. The pavement depths, again, according to your city, your province, your country, whatever. Super elevation, I'm not going to super elevate my road. My slope is away from crown. Potential pivot, I'm just going to select no. Inside point code will be crown. Outside point code would be edge of pavement. So I'm going to select my marker and it's going to place my lane in. Moving on to the curb and gutter. This is a slightly different curb and gutter. We are going to be using the same piece. So under curbs, curb and gutter value 1, the numbers are going to be different because this is what's called a rolled curb. Now I'm going to insert this one first and then I'm going to go and change the numbers. So I'm going to insert it and then click on it. Hit escape, click on it. Gutter edge, outside lane slope, -10, and as I hit enter, we see the assembly changes. It's away from crown. I'm just going to turn depth and extension off. Outside lane slope, -2, and as I change these numbers to 0.165, 0.28, 0.025, 0.103, 0.245, and 0.24. Again, those are from my city, and I've just gone and done the math and figured it out. Utilizing, again, right-click help if you missed that. For the A, B, C, D, E, F, their dimensions are all right there. Next, taking a look at the sidewalk. So again, I'm going to be using urban sidewalk. My inside boulevard width is 0. My sidewalk width is 1.5. The outside boulevard width is 1.725. 2% slope with a depth of 0.1. And I'll click and place that in. So this, if I measure it, and I've done everything correctly, should be 8 meters wide. So our distance in the X is 8 meters wide. I'm going to select it, right-click, mirror it to the other side. And in this case, I will click on that blue circle this time because we're just directly mirroring it over to the other side. And now I am going to go and name all my pieces. So the right lane, the right curb and gutter, the right sidewalk, left lane, left curb and gutter, left sidewalk. And just to double confirm, I'm going to measure the distance from side to side, and that is 16 meters wide. Now again, we're going to start duplicating this assembly into different pieces based on potentially what we're going to need. Now, on the inside of our knuckles, on the inside, the inside of our knuckles and possibly the inside of the cul-de-sac, we're going to need some specific pieces that we can target the center of the road and is only included on one side. So I'm going to duplicate, just copy my assembly down here. I'm going to delete everything on the left, and I'm going to name this Residential Street, left side only, new. And I'm going to just update, I've already got new there. Okay. Residential Street, left side only, new. And if you guessed that we're going to do the right side only as well, we're going to go ahead and make that one. Residential Street, right side only, new. So when we are creating, what these two assemblies are for is when we're creating our knuckles and our cul-de-sacs. More specifically the knuckles, I want to model the right side of the road only. So as we're going through the knuckle, I want to model the right-hand side of the road. On the left-hand side, we actually have to create an assembly that targets from this alignment back to the center line. And we'll get to that in a moment here. Because we now need to take this assembly and duplicate it 2 more times. So I'm going to copy that again. And I'm going to delete my curb and gutter on the left, and I'm going to delete my curb and gutter on the right. And then rename these to Residential Street, curb and gutter on left. And then Residential Street, curb and gutter on right. These two are, again, if potentially we go through any intersections. So we have an intersection here. We will need the driving lane on the right, but we need all the other bits on the left. And we're going to have to apply these and change them up in our corridor as we go through it, but we will get to that in the corridor video. And finally, the last two assemblies that we are going to need are going to be assemblies for our curb returns. Now, I'm not going to copy any of these. I'm going to create a new assembly. So corridors create assembly. I'm going to call it curb return right new. And the assembly type, I'll just leave it on other. There's really nothing for a curb return. Curb return fillets. Right. And I'll hit OK. And I'll place it down. Now this one is a little bit different. We're going to start with the lane super elevation AOR, and essentially this assembly is going to track along this curb return, the outside iron knuckle. So we'll need the driving lane on the right or the left, and we are going to need the sidewalk bits on the right or the left. We'll just have to remember that this alignment is our center line, driving's on the right, sidewalk and stuff is on the left. So I am going to right now switch this to left. I don't care about the width. If you really want to set it for 4.25, go for it. The slope is -2. Super elevation none, away from crown. This one we want to slope towards crown. Pivot, I'm going to go no. Inside point code will be edge of pavement. Outside point code will be our crown. And I'm going to place it in there. The next pieces, I tend not to copy and paste from other assemblies while I'm doing this. Doing the curb returns, it does tend to cause some issues, or it can. So I'm just going to redefine my curb and gutters and my sidewalk as well. So my curb and gutter is going to be attached to there, and I'll change the numbers after the fact. Gutter edge outside lane slope -10%. Slope direction away from crown. I'll leave both those as 0. And then 0.165, 0.28, 0.025, 0.103, 0.245, and 0.24. All right, and then lastly, we are going to do the urban sidewalk. Right side 0, 1.5, 1.725, 2%, and 0.1. So that would be our curb return fillet if the alignment is on the right. We now need to make an assembly for curb return fillets left on the left side of the road. So we will now essentially need to remake the exact same assembly, but for everything on the right hand side. Inside point code will be edge of pavement, outside point code will be crown. Potential pivot, we'll just go no. The pivot is for kind of for the super elevation side of things. And I missed one of the options. We want slope of 2% for this one. So we're defining, again, the curb and gutters. Under curbs, curb and gutter value 1. We want the left-hand side, gutter edge outside lane slope -10%, away from crown, 0, 0. 0.165, 0.28, 0.025, 0.103, 0.245, and then 0.24. And then lastly, we want the urban sidewalk. This will be on the left-hand side, 0, 1.5, 1.725, slope of 2%, and we can click there. And then finally, we want to name our pieces. So this would be the right lane, because we're taking this and we're going to stretch it to the left. Here is our curb and gutter. And then here is our sidewalk piece. And we're going to do the same for this one, sidewalk. Curb and gutter. And then this will be the left lane. And that essentially concludes our assemblies here. This was a bit of a longer video, and we did make quite a few assemblies. We did them a little bit faster because we did a bunch of explaining in the first one. But just a quick recap, we have our primary collector assemblies. We have the assembly for the normal road cross section. We have the assembly right before the intersection. And we have the 2 assemblies potentially needed through the intersection. We have our residential road. We have our residential road for the inside of our knuckles, and it could be a right or left. And yes, we duplicated some of these, but it's better to have them and not need them than try and make them afterwards. We have our residential road through any potential intersections, and then we have our curb return fillets for any of our interchanges, so actual intersections, and we'll need to use those curb return fillets around any knuckles and outside of cul-de-sacs.